TCI is brought to you by Unbridled Song, sire of 14 Grade 1 winners, including 2012 Forgo winner MC.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Breeders' Cup alongside Joel Cunningham. I'm John Siegel. Joel, we have a lot of races to talk about. Let's jump right into the sprint division because we saw last year's champion, Amazombi, back in action. Joel, we thought that he would win this race. It's a totally different story. It really was a disappointing performance.
Man, John, it seems like every time this year we run into some sort of disappointment, whether it be horses go by the wayside with perhaps an injury. And maybe that was the case with this horse, but we know he did not run well, John. He was off the board this weekend, and we'll go straight to the race replay and break it down here. The Twin Spires TV race replay, we hit the play button, and we really catch him on the far turn here at Santa Anita, and you see White Cap, White Shadow Roll with Mike Smith, Amazombi here. Great trip, turns in the stretch, switches leads on cue, but from there, it's up and down. He's throwing crosses, he's whipping and driving. You see the big colt coil on the outside, that big physique, those long strides, just puts Amazombi away. And Baffert's other horse arrives on the scene late, typically like he does, Capital Count. They hit the wire close together. But Amazombi, to be off the board, I know he finishes close here, but that is not Amazombi's typical race. He's a consistent, old classy type horse, John. For him at his home track at Santa Anita to fire in a dud here in the stretch, they talked about him before the race. They said he was a little flat. He wasn't quite himself. Well, he ran to it in the stretch. Really no excuses there, in my opinion. This is not what you want to see if you're an Amazombi fan going up to the Breeders' Cup Sprint, in my opinion. He went from a clear division leader to a very questionable a contender now, in my opinion, in the sprint. I think Cole's now probably your favorite in here, and they're running tests on Amazombi, but I tell you what, I haven't seen many horses that ran that poorly. They didn't know what was wrong with them, come back 4 weeks from now and turn in a dazzling performance. So I'd be very concerned.
All right, so yes or no, you think Coyle now goes for the sprint?
Oh, I think Bob Baffert already said yes. I mean, blinkers made a big difference. I mean, this colt kind of reminds you of Midnight Loot a little bit. Big colt, kind of ran long early in his career, backed him up, had a lot of talent. Blinkers go on, comes from the cloud, just a big, long striding, closing type horse. I don't think he's as good as Midnight Loop, but certainly Cool might be your favorite now in the sprint division. And I worry about him a little bit because he is so big, John. He needs clear run. He's going to be that kind of horse. I'm not so sure he's going to get out in time and find the traffic he needs to go 108, what it's going to require to win the sprint.
All right, let's go to another win in your in race for the sprint division. It was the Phoenix at Keeneland. You and Ed both thought this race would have no consequence on the Breeders' Cup Sprint. After watching some of the parts, do you still feel that way?
Some of the parts ran well like I expected. I mean, you see him here going in the stretch under Le Peru. I mean, he hasn't been asked yet, and he just picks up and draws away from this field. Almost looked like his 3-year-old comeback, John. We knew he was a pretty good 2-year-old. This year we knew he liked the poly track, so it doesn't surprise me he wins this race. But he's been coming out of listed type races, John. He's never really stepped up and beat the best of his generation, and this was just a grade 3 here, and we know he likes the track, as mentioned. So I just think when you look at the rest of this field, it's hard to imagine any of these horses making a big impact on the sprint, but watch out for some of the parts maybe next year at 4.
All right, let's transition now to the filly and mare sprint, but before we do, you met up with Ed DeRosa at Keeneland earlier today to talk about a few of this weekend's races, but he had some pretty strong things to say about Groupie Doll. Hey, let's go to the footage.
Well, Ed, we had to make it to the Keeneland paddock at least one time, man. Now, obviously talking Breeders' Cup here, most of the preps are in the rearview mirror. However, we do have some key turf races, I think, this weekend, namely here at Keeneland, the QE2 for 3-year-old fillies. John Sheriff's used this race as a prep for Harmonious a couple years ago. When you're looking at this field, do you see any of these contenders, maybe Stephanie's Kitten, anybody coming out of this race and being a contender in that filly and mare turf?
Yeah, I think you said it with Stephanie's Kitten. I mean, she's a Breeders' Cup winner already. She's been pointing for this race after missing some targets earlier in the year. One thing with this race, though, even if you're not looking ahead to Breeders' Cup, you have to be excited about what it tells you about next year's class. Last year's race had Marketing Mix, Winter Memories, Hungry Island, all graded stakes winners this year. Marketing Mix might be a champion, so this is a key race, even if not for Breeders' Cup, for the division next year.
Yeah, I agree 100% with Marketing Mix, and I think Samatar in this race has a look for Chad Brown, of a filly that really has a promising future, particularly next year at 4. Real quick, if I asked you if the races were run this weekend, you tell me the most likely winner of a Breeders' Cup race.
All right, well, the optimist in me has to say Frankel. I still think he's coming. But the realist in me will have to say Groupie Dow, not only because she's shown she's the best in her division, but no one else has even run to her level. Groupie Dow just seems to be on another plane, and right now she's my most likely winner.
All right, Joel, let's switch gears now and go back out to Santa Anita, and I want to talk about the mile division now. You know, we had a grade 1 prep out there at Santa Anita. It was the Arroyo, who you guys thought obviously would really run big in here, but he had Mr. Commons breathing down his neck.
He really did, John. I mean, obviously we knew he'd make an easy lead. We knew speed was holding at Santa Anita, and it was a short group, so obviously got on that easy lead, John, and he was gone from there. He's in such good form right now, but Mr. Commons had to make a premature run at him. That's not his running style. He wants the speed to back up, and he wants to make that one closing type kick. So I like the way he ran here. I know he's third, and the Japanese horse runs by him late, Trailblazer, but personally for me going into the mile, I like the second and third place finishers better than I do the winner here because we expected him to win, but I think he's nothing more than a pace presence in that mile.
All right, let's go now to the Shadwell Turf Mile at Keeneland where we see Wise Dan. You know, on Friday, you guys were surprised he ran in here. Thought he'd have to run an A-plus performance to win. Joel, he looks like he did it pretty easy.
Is this A-plus enough for you here? You see him swallow quality speed on the turn here. Dominus going backwards, Silver Max done, and you see him just draw away here, John. I mean, you want to talk about the best horse in training in North America? I think you're looking at him right here. I mean, just look how much he spreads his field out. Now, if you look at your runner up here, Wilcox in runs well, third place finisher runs well, but they're not really top milers with that back class. For me, Doubles Partner's a horse that you really need to watch out for. He ran fourth. He had a troubled trip there in the stretch. He was in the white silks down on the inside. It's a second troubled trip at Keeneland. For me, he could be a contender next, second off the layoff in that mile.
Classic division?
I think he runs in the Classic. I would run him there. He's the best horse in the country.
All right, let's go now. On Friday, we were testing the 2-year-olds. Now it's time to rank the 2-year-olds. And I want to start off with the top 5 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You know, I see 4 horses in here, Joel. They're the first 4 finishers of the Champagne. I guess you really like that race.
Absolutely, John. And let's talk about your winner, Shanghai Bobby. I mean, for me, I'm really concerned about how far this colt's going to go. He's out of an Orientate mare. Second dam is Carson City. He looks like a precocious one-turn kind of horse for me. So when I look at Shanghai Bobby, I see a horse that, for him to win by 5 lengths over that talented of a group, obviously I like the Champagne group, for them to have the top 4 in my top 5. For me, you have to have him number 1, but I'm very concerned, again, about him being a short price, going around 2 turns in that juvenile. But no question, with his form, he's the best 2-year-old in the country. If we go back to the top 5 here, Arch Warrior, I know he ran 4th, John, but if you look at how slow the fractions were early in that race and how fast they came home late, nobody really switched positions, so I'm going to give him a shot going around 2 turns. And yes, I'm sticking with the hype. Power Broker, how can you have Baffert out of the top 3? I mean, here's a grade 1 winner over the track, won by half a dozen. I don't think he beat the best group of California, but certainly off that form, you have to have him in the top 3 with Baffert. Fortified, Distorted Humor, have an APNE Mary, ran 3rd in the Champagne. This horse ought to love 2 turns. Watch out. He's a sneaky horse in that juvenile. And Golden Sense, your runner-up in the Champagne, very talented, and just a second start to ship over and run second, you know, in a race like the Champagne. But again, he's another colt that could be a middle distance type, so watch out for 1 and 5 when you're talking about the distance.
All right, let's move now to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We've already showed this once. We just are updating it a little bit.
We showed it about a month ago, a month and a half ago.
And we see Dreaming of Julia and My Happy Face. We got to talk about them because their race was so impressive over the weekend.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how Lasix plays a factor in these juvenile divisions. Obviously, no Lasix. You have so many ways who's decided to pass the juvenile filly, so she comes off. As well as Sign, who probably won't run at this point, has not run since her maiden win. But our top 2 stay the same, and My Happy Face ran so game. We talked about how quick she was.
Right.
And Dreaming of Julia is a lumbering type filly here. You see her on the outside. You see how much bigger she is than My Happy Face. I mean, My Happy Face is a quicker type filly. Got that inside lead, and then speed held. And Dreaming of Julia is a filly I think ultimately wants to go about 1 mile and 1/8, John, when you look at that pedigree. Big lumbering type filly. For her to win, it was impressive. For her to fight his game along the inside as she did, you had to be impressed with both fillies. They were 10 lengths clear of the 3rd place finisher. So I think this is a very live race, the Frizette, going into that juvenile filly. So I think you have to have those 2 in the top 3 along with Baffert's undefeated filly at Santa Anita. And then I have a couple other new horses in here with the ones coming up.
I got a question here at number 4. I see you got a Spring at Last filly in there, but it's not Spring in the Air, the winner of the Alcibiades over the weekend.
I like the one that beat Spring in the Air, and that's Spring Venture. She's undefeated. She's beat that filly already, John. And I know it's turf, poly track. Can she handle the dirt? I can tell you what, she is ultra talented. She's very, very talented, John. She might be one of the best 2-year-old fillies that nobody in America knows about yet. She acts on anything, and I would give her an outside shot. If they decide to run her on the dirt, she's talented enough to be in the top 5.
All right, we got to be fair. If you think Shanghai Bobby is a shorter distance horse, you got to think that with Beholder as well.
Well, touche. Yeah, I think she's definitely a sprinter, but any 2-year-old filly that runs a 108 by iron this time of year belongs in the top 5. I don't care. That's how good and talented she was. 108 by iron, that's crazy. You never see that from a 2-year-old filly. So how talented is she? She belongs in the top 5 just on that.
All right, Joel, thank you very much, and thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We're going to have more top 5s for you as we get closer to the Breeders' Cup.